Hello everyone. So if you are watching from Lebanon, from Malaysia, from Cambodia, from the UAE, or from the US, or from Saudi Arabia, welcome Dina. As you can see, we have a big group of people watching. Maha from Jordan, and then Switzerland, India, South Africa. Shall I continue? Egypt, Qatar. So we're so excited. Bangladesh. Greece, thank you for your beautiful messages, for watching us. This is session 6. I'm not feeling the time today. Learn and Lead, our special day from Fourth Generation for Education. I'm Ali, and I'm so excited to have Dina Emser with me. I was supposed to meet her last summer in June, face-to-face, for an interactive workshop, and look what happened. 1 year after, we are meeting virtually, and then Dina will be sharing with us today, teachers are leaders, 3 steps to success. Dina, welcome, and I'm so happy to collaborate with you for the first time.
Ali, I am honored to be here with you and with our audience from around the world today. Thank you so much for your invitation.
You're welcome.
This is
so let's know a little bit more about who you are, and then we can discover what do you have for us. Okay. And just to remind everyone, you can send messages via the chat, all panelists and attendees on Facebook. I'm keeping an eye on the messages and any question in the Q&A.
Great, Ali. And I know you've already asked everyone to put their name, their role, where they're calling from in the chat. And I'm going to be counting on you to keep tabs on that chat for me. And that in that way, we can at least feel as though we're interactive, right? We're in this together. Yeah.
So let me add a new location so that I didn't mention. We have Anna, and Anna is watching from Portugal.
Great. So welcome, everybody. So let's go ahead and get started.
Yes.
All right. So do know that there will be times during this presentation that we will ask you to pause and reflect and to use the chat to interact with us so that we can kind of know what you're thinking and how you're feeling. I want to introduce myself to you for a moment. I do live in the US near Chicago in the central part of the United States. And I've been in education for over 40 years now, which seems impossible to me. How can that possibly be true for someone who looks so young, right? I started my career as a first grade teacher. And then I had the privilege and the honor and the challenge to move from public education to a school that used the positive discipline approach in the entire school. So starting with 3-year-olds through the 8th grade, kids did class meetings, they gave each other compliments and problem solving every week. So I then became the principal of that school, and I held that job for 10 years. It was one of the most challenging and wonderful learning experiences of my life. And then I moved on to become a certified coach. I do keynote speaking, leadership coaching, and training. I am a lead trainer with the Positive Discipline Program, and I have my contact information here for those of you who would like to stay in touch. So I'll tell you a little bit more about my experience as we go along. That's just a little bit of background. So as I told you before, I was a classroom teacher. I did that job really well. And then lo and behold, people started noticing. It's like, that woman has some skills. And so I got promoted to a job that I didn't know how to do. And I wonder if that's happened to any of you in your lifetime, if you can think about a time when you did something pretty well and you got promoted to the next level. And it might have been a little bit terrifying to you. It's like, uh-oh, I don't know how to do that. So even think about a time when you got promoted from different levels of classroom experience. So you were in 8th grade and you got promoted to 9th grade. And there's a little bit of terror, uncertainty about moving forward in a way that we haven't experienced before. So I definitely had the academic training to do the leadership role, but I was convinced that I didn't know how to lead. I didn't know how to lead adults. And I hadn't given myself credit for the fact that I had actually been leading children as a classroom teacher for some time. So in that moment, things became more clear to me. I was a leader because leadership is not about position. Leadership is about a set of actions. So it's sometimes a situation in which we feel ourselves volunteering to do something of service to the group. It's like you feel yourself stepping up or stepping in to a role because there's a need. So you see, I really hadn't thought of myself as a leader when I was a classroom teacher. Although when I look back to my childhood and my student life, I was probably what people would consider to be a natural leader. And my mother always told me I was a leader, but you don't always listen to your mom. So I think I kind of dismissed that information. It didn't quite sink into me. And I think for me, it felt sort of bold to call myself a leader. It's like I didn't feel confident to make that claim. And I wonder how many of you feel the same. If you see yourself as a leader, and you can easily say this to others, I want you to put the number 1 in the chat box. If you just think, yep, I'm a leader, no doubt about it. And if you struggle to see yourself as a leader, if it's kind of a hard claim to make, I want you to put the number 2 in the chat. And Ali, if you would just kind of watch to see how our numbers are shaping up there.
Sure. So, oops, I was not expecting so many too. Yeah, so I'm getting the 2, and then I'm also keeping an eye on Facebook for the people to respond.
Okay.
So 1, if you feel confident and you can say, yes, I'm leader. 2, you are feeling some struggle. And I got 1.5, Dina.
That's probably pretty appropriate. Yeah. See,
Yes, and the one they started showing up now, but then mostly I'm having 2s.
Yeah. So you see, this has been my experience. Anytime I've done a positive discipline in the classroom training, when I try to talk to teachers about their leadership role, I often find that teachers struggle with this idea. And I have to tell you, I understand it because I struggled with it as well. And I think it was that confidence in claiming leadership. It just feels almost like boastful or too bold. And now this slide that I have up, have a look. Top 19 leadership qualities you should look for in a candidate. I wonder if, because we sort of have these lists of skills and attributes in our minds, I wonder if this is part of it that's so overwhelming for us. And I think that now that I'm older and I have more experience, I understand that this kind of list is a pretty unrealistic expectation that one person would have a balance of so many powerful attributes. I think from my experience coaching now in businesses and nonprofits for over 20 years, I think the shift, at least in the US, is starting to take place where we are looking less at having one balanced leader with all of these skills and more at looking at a balanced team. So a team of people who come together because they have strengths that complement one another. So this makes me feel like, okay, this is a little bit more realistic. If we could look at our leadership team at school, our faculty, as having these particular skills, that means that one of us doesn't have to have all of them. So that makes me feel better. So now what I would like to do, if I can find my button here to move our slide forward, I want you to think for yourselves about a leader in your own life, somebody important to you. So it could be someone alive, someone who's passed. It could be a historical figure that you never met, or a teacher, or a grandparent, or a relative of yours. I want you to think about a leader who has had a powerful impact on you. And I want you to write on your notes someplace 3 words that describe what was that person's impact? What was that person for you? What did they provide? How would you describe that person if you had 3 words to do it? You don't have to put all 3 words in the chat, but would you put something that will let us know what was it about that leader that was so impactful to you?
And the words started coming, Dina. Do you want me to share them aloud?
Yes, please.
Okay, so caring, inspiring, reflective, passionate, open-minded, stable, serious, reflective, decisive, creative, um, knowledgeable, supportive, passionate coming again, provided security. So again, as now the word started coming back, like open-minded, caring, serious, kind, risk-taker, supportive again, flexible, understanding. Voilà.
Wow, great. So I am starting to hear some themes there.
Yeah.
Now, interestingly, in a few minutes, I'm going to give you a report on some research that the Gallup industry did. They interviewed over 10,000 people in various walks of life with the same question. And I'm going to share with you in a few minutes what were the top 4 things that they found our followers want. And some of you are going to be not a bit surprised that these themes are going to come right back to us in a few minutes. So I want to tell you about a transformational moment for me that happened in my career after I left the profession of being a school principal and I set out on my own. I became certified as a coach. I worked with business leaders. I worked with education leaders. I've done that now for over 20 years. And I've learned so much about leadership by walking alongside these people. So I was attending a presentation on leadership at the place where I got my master's degree. And there was a man named John Alexander who was presenting on leadership. And I was pretty excited because he at the time was the director of the Center for Creative Leadership in the US. Now, this was one of the top leadership development organizations in the state, and they were very highly respected. So I was seeing John Alexander live in a very small setting, maybe 50 people. And so I had my note paper ready. I was really excited to take notes. And I couldn't have been more surprised when he stood up and he said, how many of you have seen those lists of leadership attributes and qualities and have just felt overwhelmed by them? So similar to the list I just showed you of the 19. And I thought, yes, this is one of the things that's kept me from claiming my natural place as a leader. And he went on to say that he believes there are really only 3 skills that leaders need in order to be effective. Wow, you can imagine. I was very surprised and very excited. I was sitting on the edge of my chair, literally waiting for him to tell me what were those top 3 skills. So let's get right to it, teachers. And I want you to think about this for you. So the very first one, know yourself. How in the world can you be a leader if you don't know yourself? So let's think for just a moment. I want you to think about what words describe you. What are your strengths? How do you want to be known and described by your friends and your students? Think a little bit about what is your personal brand. Do you realize you have one? As a teacher, you have a personal brand. You are known in a particular way. Some of us are not very clear about what that is. So one of the things that helps me know myself is I really watch for what motivates me, what kind of invitations really light me up inside, and what are the things that get me in trouble? Like, what are the things I say yes to that I should really say no to? Or what kinds of social situations come up? Maybe in your classroom, you can think about what brings out the best in you and what brings out the worst in you. Are you an introvert or an extrovert or an ambivert? Something in the middle. What are your emotional buttons? What are things people do that cause you to react from your emotions rather than your rational brain? We all have buttons to push, right? What is your passion? What is your purpose for living? What do you value? There are so many things to know about yourself, and it takes time, and it takes paying a particular type of attention and reflection to fully know yourself. So I hope that you have taken just a moment and on your note paper written, what are some words that you would love to have people use to describe you? And what are at least 3 strengths that you bring to the table, to the classroom? I can't emphasize to you enough how important it is for you to pay attention to this type of thing. Don't just let it go by without paying attention. And if people pay you compliments or they give you feedback about your style, listen. Listen carefully and ask yourself, does this line up with my perception of who I am? Ali, were some people putting some things in the chat?
They started, yes.
Okay.
So the 3 words that describes me: responsible, caring, creative. Those are the first 3 words from Dina. And so I invite all our attendees to start putting these words. And then caring is coming again from Muna, loving and helpful. Kind, passionate and supportive from Rihanna. Detailed, responsible, and supportive from Jan. Shubhara, committed, tolerant, cooperative. Responsible, independent, supportive. Cooperative, creative, organized. Patient, decisive, hardworking. So these are also some words coming in the chat.
You know, Ali, these are excellent words to describe teachers, and they're also excellent words to describe leaders. And I was just imagining what it would be like as a teacher to ask the students in your classroom, tell me, give me a little bit of feedback. What are 3 words you would use to describe me as your teacher? It's a little bit vulnerable to ask, but it might be a really good self-discovery experience for teachers. Just let me check out my perception and see if that's also the way the teachers, maybe you'd ask some friends who are on the faculty, start to get a little bit of feedback from people. What are my strengths? Okay. So again, what's required is paying maybe a bit closer attention to who you are and what you bring. All right, let's look at the second skill of leadership. No surprise here, right? We have to understand ourselves and we also have to understand others. Like, what's the difference between me and you, Ali? Probably lots of things similar and things that make us distinctly different. So let me tell you who I have come to for lots and lots of help in understanding others. And that is, I mentioned earlier that I'm a lead trainer with the Positive Discipline Program. And now we have programs to train parent educators. We have programs to train teachers, early childhood educators, and probably the newest among them is a program that I have written with Jane Nelson called Empowering People in the Workplace. This is for school leaders and other types of business leaders, HR professionals, people who really understand the value of relationships in leadership. And they really want to build those relational skills so that they can become more effective at understanding true motivation. So we use the psychology and the principles of Alfred Adler in order to sort of peel back the layers and the puzzles of what makes human beings tick. So Adler gave us some really good highlights. He said that all behavior is motivated by our goal to belong and to feel significance in our social groups. Now, we're all social beings. We all need other people in order to survive, honestly. We've certainly noticed that a lot, especially in a year when we've been challenged to be together, right? We're motivated to find our place, starting in our families, and usually then in our schools, and in our work, and in society. So we want to know that we belong, and we also want to know that we have some significance. And Adler described significance as the contribution that we can all make to humankind. So if we feel inferior, as though we don't belong and we aren't significant, we tend to find ways to belong in our social group that are sometimes mistaken ways, and we compensate. So we know this as the 4 goals of misbehavior with children, and come to find out, it also happens with adults. So if we can look at and reflect on the way we're feeling in the moment of challenge, this often gives us a clue about the other person's motivation. So we know that if we're feeling irritated or worried or annoyed, sometimes the person is trying to get attention from us in a mistaken way. They want to get attention and they want to get belonging, recognition. If we feel challenged or threatened, often it's a power struggle. So they're looking to maintain or get back their power. If we feel hurt or disbelieving, it's like, oh my gosh, I can't believe you just said that. Often people are finding they want justice. They feel like something has been unfair and they want to seek justice. And if we feel like despair, like we literally don't know what to do to help the individual, often they're feeling like they're not capable in order to move on. So Adler has taught me a tremendous amount about understanding others. And the truth is, he also reminds us that from the day we're born, we're grinding a set of lenses through which we look at life. And that means that my lenses are different than your lenses, are different than the next person. So we all see things in a particular way that's unique to us. So these are kind of the guidelines that I have used in my professional and my personal life to help me understand other people and our differences. So let's look at skill number 3.
Shubhara is asking if we can go one slide back, but let me tell you, Shubhara, that the session is recorded, so you will be able to watch Dina again if you missed anything.
Yes, and just to review, the slide previous said, skill number 2 is understanding others.
Yeah.
So, and this one is just to give us a little bit of help with that. That's a big job. So now let's take a look at skill number 3. We understand ourselves, we understand others, and we have to be willing to collaborate together. So as Adler said, we're social beings. We need each other in order to survive. And it's true that our young children are absolutely going to need to know how to cooperate and work together, because there are so many challenges, both in our schools and in our classrooms and our families, and also in the world today and into the future. This is going to require major teamwork and cooperation to navigate and to solve some of these social and economic dilemmas. So let's think for a moment. We're teachers here. What does our desire or our willingness to collaborate look like? I wonder how many of you agree. Put a number 1 or the word agree in the chat if you feel like you're overworked as teachers. Ali, you and I talked a minute about this. It's like, oh, I don't have time to do that. I don't have time to do that. I'm overworked and overwhelmed. Does that describe you?
I'm getting so many ones, Dina.
So many ones, yes. I was the same way, and I have to watch it, or I am still the same way. Some of you wrote down, I'm hardworking, I'm detail-oriented, I'm responsible. Sometimes I think when we're responsible, we tend to take on a bit too much responsibility. We maybe do a few too many things ourselves that we might be able to share. So I wonder, are there things you are doing regularly that could be done by your students? Think about that for a moment. Do you share your power with them? Do you allow them to contribute back to you in meaningful ways? I have always prided myself on my work ethic. I stayed late, I came early, I took things home, I worked on weekends. While that was a good thing, and I think my school principal absolutely loved that about me. I remember when I met Jane Nelson for the first time, and I was telling her a little bit about some of the things I was doing. She said, Dina, do you feel like you're working too hard? And I said, I think I am, Jane. And she said, if you feel like you're overworked, you probably are. What can you ask the kids to do that will be helpful? Oh, that was a hard one. It was hard for me to give up some of those things that I was doing because I was pretty convinced that I could do them better, faster than anybody else, not just kids, but most people. So When I got that job at that positive discipline school, I came to the school with no training. I hadn't even read the positive discipline book. And the first week of school, the kindergartners I was with, 5 years old, said, Dina, our class meeting is on Tuesdays. I'm like, guys, I'm so sorry we won't be able to do class meeting this week. I don't know how. I haven't yet been trained. They're like, don't worry. We've got this. We'll do it. And lo and behold, when Tuesday morning at 10 o'clock came, we sat in a circle. I was sitting on a chair exactly the same size as theirs. One of the students was holding the clipboard. They started with compliments, and then they went on to problem solving. That changed my life. In that moment, I became so aware of how capable kids were, and I had been holding them way too small before. I was not giving them credit for the abilities that they had. So I started really relaxing and shifting into the mode of asking myself, do I need to be the one to do this? Am I the one that has expertise around creatively solving this problem? Some of you said, you're very creative. I have an idea that you probably are already asking kids for their ideas about solutions. And if you're not, tap into that natural resource of creativity that children have. So these kids have already been trained by their former teacher to solve their own problems. And the regular hassles that come up in the classroom, we started putting those on our classroom meeting to attend to those together rather than having me shoulder all of the responsibility for that. Children are very clever and creative at solving problems. So not only did I need to train them to be cooperative and rather than competitive, I also needed to learn this myself as a teacher. So rather than thinking about being an independent person, start to imagine yourself being interdependent. Start to imagine the children in your classroom having even more opportunities to collaborate, to cooperate, and start to reduce the number of opportunities they have to compete with one another. My perception is in the world, there's lots and lots of competition already. We don't need to build that skill. What we need to focus on is our ability to naturally collaborate and cooperate with one another. We can rely on each other and we can work together. So let's just test this theory out for a moment. I want you to think about that respected leader that you thought about earlier, or maybe another person in your life whom you deeply respect. Think of a time when a person like that asked you for your help, for your input, to do a particular task for them. Maybe they ask for your advice or your ideas about something. And then I want you to put in the chat box 1 or 2 feeling words. Our thoughts tend to be lots of words long. Our feelings tend to be 1 word long. So Ali, what are you seeing?
So
How
I'm
did it
waiting for
feel?
those feelings to come in the chat, and while I'm waiting for this, okay,
Yeah.
so the words started coming. I wanted to share a story from my first principal, and then how again we learn from others. So I will share the words, and then maybe I can share the story.
Great.
So I have empowering, honesty, appreciated, grateful, important. These are the keywords coming in the chat.
Yeah.
Positively overwhelmed, problem solver. Yeah.
Positively overwhelmed. That's interesting.
Persistence.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm happy. I try my best to help. Excited. So these are the feelings coming.
Motivating. Yeah. Great.
Privileged.
Privileged. Wow. Yeah. So Ali, tell us your story.
So I used to be, I was doing a presentation for the parents, And then before doing the presentation, my principal, she told me, Ali, you need to use the microphone during the presentation. And then I hated so much the microphone. I said, no, they will be able to hear me. It's not a very big group of parents. And then the session started. I was on the stage in the auditorium. So she went and she sat at the end of the auditorium, and then she raised her hand and she said, Ali, I'm not able to hear you. Use the microphone in front of everyone.
Oh.
And then since that day, I feel more confident using the mic, talking in front of the people, 20, 50, 100. Like she put me in a situation where I need to do it, and there was no chance to say no in front of everyone. So,
So Ali, what are you taking away from that story? What's there for you in terms of leadership?
I took the courage and the taking the risk, you know, so and not being shy, and those are the three words that comes to my mind when I remember this situation.
And it's interesting that when leaders or people we admire invite us to stretch,
Yeah.
it really feels like an acknowledgement. You're capable.
Yes.
I know you can do this. You don't know you can do it yet. You don't know you're comfortable doing it yet, but I absolutely have faith in you.
True.
So think about that message that teachers can give kids more often. You're capable. You can do this. It's a stretch, absolutely. And I believe in you. You can do this. I need your help. So I'll tell you what used to keep me from asking was first this idea that I'm kind of in control of it if I do it myself. But the second thing that always got in my way is I didn't want to impose on people. I didn't want to ask them to do something that maybe they didn't want to do. But I got invited by people to do things that felt like a stretch, like a contribution I could make. And I was so honored. So this is why I asked this question, teachers. I want you to remember how you felt when you got invited to contribute something to someone you respect. It's not an imposition, it's an invitation. So we need to be asking more. We need to be vulnerable and say, I can't do this alone. We're in this together. This is something we're creating in our classroom together. All right, remember earlier when I said something about the fact that leadership is not a position, it's more of a practice. So let's have a look at this one. So this one is around the task of leadership. It's not about putting greatness into people, but finding the greatness that's already there. So this is a way of understanding others. To become a strength spotter is the way I put it. I thought that was one of my primary roles as a school teacher and even as a school principal. Always have my eye open, my magnifying glass out for watching for people's strengths and calling them forth from there. Now remember, even your parents need this kind of support. It's a challenging time to be raising children at home. Parents get discouraged too. And I think this is something teachers have trouble recognizing. You also lead parents. You have expertise in classroom teaching that parents tend not to have. So they're looking to you for your input, your advice, your leadership about their children's strengths, also their weaknesses, in a way that's encouraging and empowering. Your colleagues are watching you, and you are watching them for their strengths, to support them in moments of challenge. So be sure that you are liberally sharing your appreciation for their unique talents and use them. Invite them to collaborate and help you as well. So earlier I mentioned that I would share with you from the Gallup research the 4 things that leaders are being requested of. Their followers want these 4 things. And this goes back to the question that I asked you about that very impactful leader for you, and what were 3 words you might use to describe them. So I think many of the things you shared also can be summarized here in one of these 4 topics. I don't know that anyone mentioned the word trust specifically, but trust is the #1 thing our followers want from leaders. And come to find out, it's so important that if you don't have trust, the other 3 don't have a very big impact. So trust for me means that people will look at me and they will say, her words and her actions match. I can trust her. What she says, she will do. Not perfectly, because we're not perfect. We're striving for perfection, but we will never get there. She uses her mistakes as opportunities to learn. I can trust her. So think about, for you, how do you define the word trust, and how do you show people you can trust me? I am good. I am good for my word. My word is my deed. The second one is compassion. People want to know they're not just a name, they're not just a number, but that you know something about them, and that you can show them that. I think it came up as caring. You can show them your passion. The word passion is also in compassion. So for me, it is, I have a passion for people. I have caring, I have kindness. I seek them out. Ali, how are you doing today? I know you were struggling with a child sick at home yesterday. How's she feeling? So when we remember things about people that are not work related, it tends to show that we're trying to connect as people. Stability came up in the list. It came right up from you. This person was steady. They were stable. You know what to expect from this person. There's some kind of a routine quality about them that you feel safe because you know that they stand on a firm foundation. And the last one is hope. We want from our leaders not only stability, their ability to be stable in the moment, we also want them always to be looking to the future to say, what are we going to do to improve the situation for everyone? What's our hope going into the future? So I hope you took note of those 4 words, and I hope that you will continue to think about your children, your parents, and your colleagues. They're following you. They're paying more attention to your words and your deeds than you probably recognize. And these are the 4 things that all followers want from leaders. Let's have a look at this one for just a moment. I wonder what you notice about your ability to take time and give care for yourself. What are some of the routine practices that you have that bring you peace and calm? If you would, just add a few words in the chat box. I believe that as teachers, it's sometimes hard for us to carve out the time. Maybe we rush to work and forget to pack a lunch, or maybe we get up late and forget to bring a glass of water or tea or whatever is going to help sustain you through the day. I didn't practice very good self-care when I was a teacher, and it makes such a big difference when we get the rest and the nutrition that we need, and take some time on the weekend or the week evenings to simmer down, calm down a little bit. Ali, are some things coming into the chat?
Yes, many things. So meditation, yoga, running, green tea, music. I continue, drink coffee, exercise, watch a movie, calm music, tea with honey, music coming again, mindfulness, praying, go for a walk with the student, writing.
Oh, nice, yeah.
I would go for the nature, going to nature.
Excellent.
Connect with the nature, sports, walking again. So, yeah.
And some of these sound almost like things that can be modeled in front of our students. So there's also, I think, a reality that our students need to see us taking care of ourselves rather than being overwhelmed and overworked. We don't want to model for our students that overwhelmed and overworked is what it looks like once you become an adult. All right, so let's take a moment. What I'd like to ask you now is to put a one-word feeling in the chat box that describes how you're feeling now at the end of our presentation. We've talked about the 3 skills. There may have been
Know
one.
yourself, know others, and collaboration. So
Uh-huh.
inspired, enlightened, inspired again. These encourage, energized, inspired, coming again, encourage again. So again, grateful. This is nice. Motivated.
Good,
Yeah.
good. You know,
Calm.
oh, calm, calm is good, huh? Yeah, we need some calm to move forward. So take a look at my questions here for you. I find it's really helpful at the end of a presentation like this. Hopefully it hasn't been too overwhelming with information. Again, I love it, right? That there are only 3 places right now that we need to focus. And jot yourself some notes, not necessarily in the chat, about your reflections on your learning today. So this would be a place to start. And then maybe some questions that you have in your own mind, either about yourself, maybe one of the 3 skills we talked about, something that's popping for you that's a question, and you think to yourself, you know what, I want to ponder that. I want to think about that question a bit longer. And then always, you know, I'm a coach at heart now, so I'm always talking to people about how are you going to take action on the learning from today? What are you taking forward? And what will your first step be? I want to tell you that there are many online free strength assessments. So I have all my clients use one from Gallup called Strength Finder. And that one costs about $20 US to do. But what I noticed is that there are many free ones. There are happiness quotients, there are being skills and doing skills assessments that you can take. They're very brief, and many of them are free online. So if you want to get some words around your strengths that don't necessarily come from your colleagues and your students, but from a more scientific place, I invite you to look at some of those assessments. So Ali, do we have time for a couple of questions? What's your suggestion at this point?
Yes, so while we are waiting for the questions, I'm going to share a little bit our website and then show the participants that we still have today one session. So if you are still awake, energized, inspired, and you want to learn more, and if this is the first session that you are attending, our day today, it was under the title Learn and Lead. We've done 3 sessions in Arabic for all our Arabic speakers, and then we have 4 sessions in English. We're wrapping up the session, teachers are leaders, and then the last session of the day in approximately 45 minutes from now, teaching leadership skills for students. And so we will have a different perspective from different speakers. You can join us 6 p.m. UAE time, 7:30 p.m. Dubai time, 4 Beirut time, or 2 p.m. GMT. I'm not sure we will have people from Singapore or Sydney watching us at 1 a.m. in the morning, but who knows? And so for the questions, Wisal is asking, can you mention more the title of those assessments or where we can find them so they need more clarification?
I think that the one that I mentioned was from Gallup,
Hmm?
and it's called the Strength Finder Assessment.
Okay.
And then the other place I was just looking yesterday is the University of Pennsylvania has many, many assessments that are free.
Okay.
So if you look that up, I think it's also under Authentic Happiness.
Mm.
But it's not just about happiness, although I will say that knowing your strengths will increase your happiness because it will give you more of a strong sense of who you are moving forward.
And then if people would like to know more about your work and then your session and your workshop, I'm going to put your link and your website in the chat for the people. You can also follow Dina, contact her. I'm sure she will respond because after my first email, I got a positive feedback from her. And then I have a question. Christine, hello, Christine. Hopefully I will be able to invite you in May. Christine, she's asking, can you say something about the difference or the common points between I'm a manager and I'm a leader? I'm thinking here about a sentence like, I have no time to lead because I have to manage a team.
Yes. Oh, that's a good question. Yeah. So one thing I have heard, Christine, is that we manage things and we lead people. So if you think about it that way, you can kind of compartmentalize the task-related things that you manage with your team. But I always want you to recognize that you have far more power than you think you do, because people are watching and listening to us every day in ways that we can't imagine. So the model that we are as leader is very, very powerful. And so this is one of the things I want all of you to have more awareness about, and I want you to step into that with purpose. The way you speak, the way you address people, if you take time to stop what you're doing and pay close attention and listen, all of these things are really important communication. You are important to me. You matter. So this connection before correction is what we call it in positive discipline language. But what it means is I can, of course, manage my task, and I can certainly lead people. I hope that helps. Yeah. It's really more of a both and. It's not one or the other, it's both and. Yeah.
Good. Any other final question or maybe a final comment, Dina, from your side? Yes, I have something coming. Okay, so we have a thank you from Christine, and we had a compliment about also your voice. It was so relaxing, and I gave the same comment.
You didn't fall asleep.
before we started. Maha, she said your voice alone is very relaxing when you ask for the things that they do to relax and to do the self-care. So
I guess the thing I would say, Ali, is that I have been asked to do more direct training around leadership skills. That's coming. So if you want to keep checking into my website, dinaemser.com, there will be more information coming later this spring. So I really appreciate everybody's attention and willingness to play along in the chat. And Ali, it's been great to have you as a partner with this.
Thank you. Thank you. So a few more minutes and we will continue the last session of the day. If you are still awake, you still have time and you can manage another 45-minute session on screen. We will be talking about teaching leadership skills to students. I'm waiting for you. Thank you, Dina, and thanks everyone.
Thank you, Ali. Thanks, everybody.